It seems as though he minimized his addiction to the cam girl, because if they knew exactly what he had done in order to talk to Sylvie, they would have put him into an addiction program with no hesitation. Cody ended up paying $15,000 for Grant to have a spot in the program, which wasn't utilized. During his interview with police, Grant said that he thinks the facility refunded $3,000 since he didn't stay the full 60 days, but wasn't sure if Cody ever got the refund.
Is travel nursing still worth it? What if there was a way to get more than just your next contract? At Health Carousel, we help you redefine your nursing journey and build your career. Diverse travel and local assignments that offer more ways to work. A work-study program that helps you advance your education. A clinical ladder program that fuels your professional development and your own personal career coach. Here to help you build and execute your plan.
Once Grant was back from Cornerstone, Chad had created a list of rules that Grant needed to follow in order to stay in the house.
I guess I would call it like an ultimatum. Some options that were given to Grant to choose between after leaving the facility. And based off of some of his choices, there were specific rules and regulations that my father had laid out for him. And
give some example. I mean, I'm not asking to read the entire document. The jury has it. It's going to go back with them. They can read it. But give the jury some examples of what are the options given to them.
All right. So the first thing that was covered was living arrangements. You know, does he want to live at home, move out on his own, go to the military? Looks like my father pre-wrote this and then updated it with a different color pen, I'm assuming with discussion with Grant. So there are some markings and highlightations of things that were discussed and chosen. It looks like Grant chose to live at home. He understood that the family would not cover or pay any current, remaining, future debts, etc. It goes on to say that, some rules are no post-midnight internet use, no more all-nighters online, limited TV, install a new AT&T modem for logging, wireless, and hard traffic use. It says that he terminated his current phone and set him up with a new phone that I guess didn't have data or the ability to go on the internet. Some responsibilities where he had to get a job. He had some debts that he had to take care of. No savings. He owed the family some money. Owed the family an apology. It's very detailed.
Chad felt like he needed to severely restrict Grant's abilities at the home in order to keep him from getting into more financial trouble. He didn't know of any other way of keeping his son from blowing more money on a cam girl. He even contacted Sylvie in Bulgaria.
It states that it informed Grant that they had reached out to this woman to let them know, or to let her know some of the things that Grant had been saying weren't 100% true, and that he wasn't allowed to communicate with her anymore based off of those lies.
Unfortunately, it sounds like his mother wasn't as strict.
One of his rules was that I wasn't allowed to talk to the woman anymore that I had been talking to. But I guess you could say behind the scenes, my mom would let me talk to her through her cell phone using Twitter. And, she would tell me, like, look, you have to keep it just basic, because if you say anything or if you entice anything or do anything like that, it might lead her to say something like my dad or something like that. Because apparently when I was in Cornerstone, my dad told her because he had like hacked my computer or something like that, and then he found everything.
Electronics guy like you and your brother?
Except he's more of that like hacking level, and able to do all that stuff. So he had found, like just the stuff that was related to her, and then, he erased my whole entire computer, and he put a password on it. So it's like, even when I came back up until Thursday, like I wasn't able to go onto my own computer to look at anything.
You treated like a small child.
Right, and rightfully so. I mean, spending that amount of money, I was an active child, which I can kind of get it.
Grant is fully aware that what he's done is wrong. He knows that he should feel that way to not look like the bad guy to these detectives. But Grant doesn't really care that what he's doing is wrong because he's an addict. He has to find a way to get his fix, and eventually, Chad finds out that Grant has been talking to Sylvie, and according to Grant, he kicks him out of the house. Grant told the detectives that Chad told him that if he ever set foot on their property again, he would kill him. During his interview, his first version of events has him leaving the house between 9 and 9:30 p.m.
So I left, and then...
What time do you think you left about?
Oh, God.
At 6:30, the argument started.
I'd say, like...
Who saw this?
9 or 9:30 or so.
Then he continues to tell detectives that he drove down the road and waited on the side of the road until Cody got home at about 9:30. Cody pulled up next to him, and Grant told him that he was going to be somewhere nearby, and according to Grant, Cody gave him his debit card to use to survive. After Cody drove off, Grant said that he stayed in the same spot for a couple of hours, just in case anything happened, they knew where he was. The reason for that was because his cell phone had been turned off by Chad, so he didn't have any means of communication. Then he drove to a nearby Publix grocery store and parked next to the building, and he claims that he slept in his car. The following morning, he woke up, changed into a suit, and drove to an interview he had at Express Scripts, which is a prescription drug management company. His interview was at 10 a.m., and afterwards he went to a Verizon wireless store to try to get his phone turned back on. They told him that they couldn't help him because the account was in his father's name. He then tells detectives that he thought about going back to his house, but only drove down the road in his neighborhood and changed his mind. He went a few other places, got some food at Panera, and went to get a room at the Doubletree Hotel. The detectives brought up how he was paying for things, and Cody's debit card came up again.
I had used Cody's card to pay for one of my bills that was outstanding. It was just one of those from that fight. It was just like a bill that had backed up from there. $5.99. Yeah. He said to use this to survive until things can get figured out, because he knows that I only have a few $100s in my name.
He told you that night that you
right.
could use his card and pay off what needed to be paid off?
So, yeah, he said to use it for necessity.
Did he give it to you?
Yeah.
He gave it to you.
Yeah.
But that was normal for him.
He was
putting most of your bills.
Right.
Okay.
He explained that he used Cody's debit card to pay one of his bills. He claims that it was a bill from the Camgirl site that had been backed up. So he's been kicked out of his house and has almost no money to his name, but paying off a bill to a Camgirl site is top priority? No. What really happened is that Grant used Cody's debit card to buy more credits to pay to talk to Sylvie online the night he left his house. The internet history on Grant's Microsoft Surface shows that he paid for tokens and then used the Camgirl site at about 3 o'clock in the morning on January 25th. At this point, Grant has been sitting in a room at the sheriff's department talking to investigators for over 2 hours, and he's not asked why he's there or if anything has happened to his family. Cody was described as an extremely dedicated worker. He was always at the hospital early, getting ready to take care of patients and talking with his colleagues about the day's plans. He had never missed a day of work and always stayed late when needed. The shifts for a nurse anesthetist were 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. They worked 16-hour days, and any hours worked after 12 hours were paid at double time, so people didn't regularly volunteer to leave. Cody worked with a man named Chris Sisko, who described their day at work on January 24th, 2019.
Our days are really filled. They're very busy.
Okay, here's your fourth.
But I do remember that that afternoon it had kind of slowed down a little bit, and so what happens is there's 4 of us that are scheduled that 16-hour shift. And again, if it for some reason if it slows down in the afternoon, what we'll do is either we have to stay there on call even though there's no cases going on, or if there's even sometimes no cases going on, sometimes the head anesthesiologist that's running the board for the day, who's in control of the board, and when we get to go and come, they will first ask us if there's any volunteers, if anybody wants to leave early. Well, that day I remember that none of us wanted to leave early. So instead of any volunteers, what will happen is we'll put all of our names in a hat and draw names out of a hat. And Cody's name came up first, and he was going to leave at like 9:30 that afternoon. And then
that evening, afternoon or evening? You said afternoon?
Yeah, 9:30 p.m.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
Yep, 9:30 p.m. is when he was going to leave because we didn't need him. And then I would stay until 11 to cover until the night guy came in to cover the night shift.
It was slow and Cody was picked to leave first, but he actually left a little early. Chris described Cody wandering off to make a phone call, so he decided to sit down and have some lunch. At about 9:15, Cody popped his head in the door and said he was going to leave. He told Chris that he'd see him in the morning since they both had another shift together. Chris said that the next day he clocked into the hospital at 6:19 a.m. They had to be there by 7 a.m., but were allowed to clock in up to an hour early. He said that Cody would normally already be on site by the time he got there, but that day he wasn't.
When I first got in, I had clocked in where we clock in at, and you walk right by that, and there's the surgery OR board where you can see where your case assignment is for the day. I had ran into a colleague of ours that typically works overnight, and she had said, Cody's not here. I haven't seen him yet. He's not in pre-op. Have you heard from him? And of course I was like, no, I just got here. I haven't heard from him yet. And so I went about, the next couple minutes. I went to pre-op just to see for myself, to see if he was there, and he wasn't there. So I looked at whatever room he was supposed to be in, and he wasn't in there. So then I ran into the colleague again, and she had expressed like a little bit more concern this time. And so I said, well, why don't I just try to call him or text him? So I tried to text him, and I know that when Cody has an iPhone like I do, and I know that when you have the iMessage, that when you send a text message, typically it goes through in blue, which means that the phone received the text message. And so when I text him, hey, where are you? It went through just green, like the phone didn't receive the text message, like it's either out of service or it's dead.
Did that ever happen before?
No, sir. Cody always had his phone on. He always had a charger on him. He always had it clipped to him. If I ever, throughout the day, if I had a question about anything, I knew that if I shot Cody a text, he would text me right back with, advice or whatever. So then when it went through green, it was concerning. So I thought, well, maybe I'll just try to give him a buzz. So I tried to call the phone, and it went, rang a couple times and went straight to voicemail.
To explain to anyone who hasn't used an iPhone, if you send a text from one iPhone to another, it will actually use the Apple software iMessage, which is now just called Messages. The same text will also pop up on your computer if you use a Mac. The text bubble in the app will be green when you're texting through Messages. If you text a non-iPhone, it will just send it as a standard SMS, and the text bubble will be blue. At the same time, if an iPhone user texts another iPhone user and the phone is off or it's out of service, the text bubble will appear blue because the iPhone sending the message can't confirm that the recipient is using the Messages service. Chris made a few other calls, and nobody had heard from Cody, and since it was now past 7 a.m., Chris called 911 and asked if they would perform a welfare or wellness check.
At Burlow Mattress, Black Friday is going on all month long. Get a free adjustable base upgrade with a mattress set purchase. Every mattress we make is factory direct and custom made locally just for you, which means we're passing on hundreds, even thousands of dollars in savings to you all month long. Plus, your Burlow mattress is backed by our lifetime comfort guarantee. You won't find a better Black Friday deal or a higher quality mattress anywhere else for less. A lot less. American made, locally crafted. Burlow.
Seminole County Sheriff's Deputy Todd Moterson arrived at the Amato home at about 9 a.m. He knocked on the door, pounded on windows, called out Cody's name, and even used the air horn on his sheriff's vehicle, which was a Ford F-150. He called Cody's cell phone, Chad's cell phone, and Margaret's cell phone, but got no answer. Cody's car was in the driveway, so Deputy Moterson believed there was cause to enter the home. After getting permission from a supervisor and waiting for backup to arrive, he used a knife to jimmy open the deadbolt on the back door. There was a large cabinet in front of the door, and they had to push it out of the way. It's unclear why the cabinet was in front of the door. Sometimes people will put something like that in front of a door they never use. But I also noticed in the deputy's body cam footage that the windows were covered with paper. It's never discussed anywhere. Once inside, they found the bodies of Chad, Margaret, and Cody Amato. All three had been killed with gunshot wounds to the head. Investigators believe that Margaret was shot first.
There were gunshot wounds identified on her face and head. And of note, on the left occipital scalp, which is the back of the head on the left side, there was an oval gunshot wound entrance.
Did you observe an exit wound?
Yes, and then so the other wound on the right cheek was a exit wound.
Margaret had been sitting at her computer, and someone came up behind her and shot her in the back of the head. The last activity on the computer was at 4:44 p.m., January 24th. It was believed that Chad was killed after he got home from work at about 5:30.
So, beginning on the back of the right ear, there's a gunshot wound entrance, and this one was associated with some kind of abrasions on the back of the ear, and it was focally lacerated, or the skin was torn. And I noticed that it went through the ear, and then it re-entered through the tragus, which is an area that's commonly pierced by some people of the ear, and it re-enters into the cranial cavity and then exits on the right forehead. So it was one wound track with multiple different entrances, exits, and then re-entries and re-exits. That one involved the skin and soft tissue in the area. It involved the temporal bone of the skull. It goes through the right frontal lobe of the brain. It fractures the right frontal bone of the skull.
And tell the jury the direction of that particular bullet.
Let's see, he's setting
And that
up now.
wound course was from back to front, and it's from right to left.
Here we go, just a few more inches.
The first shot to the back of Chad's head did not immediately kill him.
When I first saw Chad's body in the kitchen, I asked the investigators if he had been moved. It was my instinct that he was not in the correct position or in the position that he had died in. Based on my training and experience, taking in the entire crime scene, the blood patterns, the movement in the blood in the kitchen, it seemed that he was not in the same positioning as he would have been at the time he died.
And I'm going to show you again, states 41. Can you please point out to the jury what specifically led you to believe he was moved?
Well, initially, when we arrived at the scene, we knew that there were 2 cartridge cases in the kitchen. However, we only saw the 1 bullet hole in the top portion of the kitchen cabinet. And that lined up with the
Well, this
blood
drive's looking
pool
okay.
on this side of the kitchen
Ouch.
island,
Into the
so
water.
the right side in this photograph. So we assumed, or I assumed, that
And he's
that
ready
shot
to go. Let's see
caused
how
him to
this
fall
hole
down.
goes for him.
He bled, and then you can see these drops of blood. Everybody's cut themselves and dripped blood, and some movement in the blood, and these palm prints. So it appeared that he was face down and possibly crawling
And this one's
around the
about
kitchen floor.
190 or so to the
And then
pin.
he ended up on this side where he bled more and died. So if somebody's crawling around and they just bleed out and die, you would assume that they would be face down.
The evidence showed that Chad was shot in the back of the head. He crawled across the kitchen floor and was shot a second time in the back of the head, but he was face up when deputies found his body. It's believed that Chad was rolled over so that whoever shot him could clip a gun holster to his belt. Christine Snyder, who's the crime scene supervisor for the Seminole County Sheriff's Department, explained why the holster was unusual.
The firearm was inside of a holster, as you can see on the screen.
Yeah, this is around the
holster had a
190
metal
mark.
clip which attached it to the belt. However, it was placed between the pants and the belt, which would make it unstable. The metal clip was on the outside across the belt, and the holster was inside of the belt between the pants and the belt. The gun itself was placed inside of the holster, and it was in this position on his body,
with the 7-iron,
which was strange because we learned from his son Jason that he was right-handed.
He looks to be
So if you're holding or if you're carrying a firearm and you want to draw it quickly, you're going to grab it here. And in this case, the grip isn't in the right location. So if somebody was carrying the firearm in this manner,
this one's heading for
they would most likely be left-handed, and they would have to do a cross draw, where they pull it out this way.
Your 6th shot here.
This is not a very common way to carry a firearm because it's a little bit harder to get to. It takes longer to pull it out. And I've heard of people who are left-handed who shoot right-handed, but it's very not as common for a right-handed person to shoot with their left hand. So normally, if you're carrying a firearm, you would probably put it inside of your pants for stability, especially a large gun like this, and he's a smaller individual.
Hey, I'm liking
and
that
you would have
one.
the grip
nice
towards the side.
And this is his
So then you can grab it quickly and pull it out. If you were carrying it the way that he has it, and you're right-handed, you would have to pull it out awkwardly, point it at yourself, and then point it towards somebody to fire it, which just doesn't make any sense. If you were right-handed and you were doing a cross draw, you would carry it on the other side and pull it out this way. But the only way that this is strange for a right-handed person to carry it this way.
Not only was the position of the holster odd, but the fact that Chad had clearly crawled through blood, but the holster was perfectly clean, showed that the holster was placed on the body after the fact. The crime scene analyst also found a drop of blood on Chad's pants under the holster. Someone was trying to make it look like Chad had a gun on him prior to his death. Investigators believe Cody was the last to be shot.
On the right cheek, there's a gunshot wound entrance, and that wound involved the skin, the soft tissue in the area, the right maxillary bone of the face, the right sphenoid bone of the skull. It crosses the midline and involved the brainstem, and it continued to involve the left cerebellar hemisphere of the brain and the left occipital bone of the skull. And finally, on the back of the head, there was a gunshot wound exit.
Cody's body was found just inside the door that came into the house from the garage. He was still in his work scrubs and had the backpack he took with him to work. It appeared as if Cody was shot in the face the minute he walked in the door. Near Cody's body was one of the 9mm guns that he owned. The question became whether Cody had killed his parents and then himself. There were 4 shell casings collected from the scene, which matched the amount of time The victims had been shot.
Human nature. Human nature. What if Panera, I searched for like top stories, Oviedo or Chuliote or something like that.
And found what?
And then I saw that there was, it was like just the initial, like,
there's a digital footprint of what, where
who asked him to come to the sheriff's office and answer some questions. From there, Grant sat in an interview room for more than 2 hours, telling investigators all about his life and his relationship with his family without ever asking why he was there. The detectives finally tell him that something happened at his house, and he starts changing his story.
When I had come back that other time, I
get on my computer, I wonder what happened by my neighborhood, and look.
Did that even spark your attention?
There's a digital footprint of what, where I went. I'm like, okay. They can tell me I looked at on my phone because it's all there. The memory's there. You can't delete it. You came back to the neighborhood. You saw some things that are really out of the ordinary, and I don't believe for a second that you thought that I'm not going to look what's going on. What happened to my neighborhood?
I mean, I didn't search it up on anything on any of the devices that I have.
You search it somewhere else.
On when I had gone to the Panera, I searched for like top stories, Oviedo or Chuliote or something like that.
And found what?
And then I saw that there was, it was like just the initial, like it had like a video, but I didn't listen to the video, but it had just an initial thing of that there was shootings in Salt Circle. But it didn't say like the address or who was on. It was just like this is the preliminary.
Was that on one of the news stations? What was the site you searched?
I can't remember. I think it was one of the Weshes.
And you saw the story because we've seen the same stories. The same story. Because there's a thing that will tell me how long of the time you spent where you saw what happened.
Yeah, I was on there for like 20 seconds.
Well, what was your thoughts when you reviewed that story?
I was freaking out, and I was just like blank. I didn't know what to do.
He changes the story within that clip alone. He claims that he saw a news van in his neighborhood, but that he didn't search for what happened. Then he immediately says he did search, but he didn't read the story. He was freaking out about it, but spent more than 2 hours at the sheriff's office and never brought it up. They finally tell him his family is dead. They ask him what he thought happened in the home.
So if anything happened in the home, to bring law enforcement there, what would you think happened?
That there was a shooting.
Between whom?
I don't know. Between Cody and my dad.
And why would you think that?
To protect me, or to help me, or to do something with me.
Grant told authorities multiple times up until this point that Cody told him, quote, he would take care of it, end quote. Grant staged the scene and then tried to plant the seed that Cody was going to kill their parents to protect him. They tell him that they know that Cody didn't shoot anybody. The evidence shows that nobody in the house fired a weapon.
She never held a gun. She didn't have a gun that night. Fact. He never fired a gun. Fact. He never fired a gun. Never did. This is the person right here, Mom, who always stuck up for you. Something happened so bad that caused her death, your dad's death, and Cody. And I'll tell you just about how it happened. 1, 2, 3. Based on evidence. Based on evidence. I know he did not shoot your mom. I know he didn't shoot your dad. I know he didn't shoot himself. And I know from video surveillance camera in the neighborhood, nobody else came to that house. I know. I can account for everybody that went to the house. I know.
So tell us what happened.
I know it. Listen to me, hey. I know. Video surveillance tells me everything that happened this night. I'm telling you. Of people that you'd be surprised
who in your neighborhood has video. And I know that there's only 4 people who was at this house during this time. 1, 2, 3, 4.
They try to get him to confess, but he maintains his innocence. They take a little break, and when they come back, Grant's story has changed some more. Now Grant said that he was still home when Cody got home from work, and that Cody began arguing with their father. It didn't help because Grant still had to leave.
And then, so is it true that you still met Cody up the block, or was that?
No.
So you didn't meet him up the block? So why did you tell us that?
I don't know.
I don't know. I was talking to detectives about a very specific part of my day, and I just made a bunch of it up. Why the hell not? Grant's clothes are taken to be analyzed by forensics, and he's given some other clothes to wear. He asked to talk to his older brother Jason, and Jason came down to the sheriff's office to talk to him.
I'm sorry. I don't believe you. And I probably will have resentment for the rest of my life, whether you did it or you didn't do it, but I need closure. I need to know what happened to my mother, my father, and my brother Cody.
Welcome to PGA
Because I wasn't there to fucking help.
Hopefully everything's going just great on your end.
And that hurts
We
me.
are playing free-hole matchmaking today.
That
Stroke
hurts
play
me a lot,
is the
man.
rules. All right,
I
let
may not
us
have been able
begin.
to stop you. You probably may have hurt me too. But at least I would have known what happened. And now I'm in fucking who knows what now. I'm lost. And it scares me that you want to leave here and not face what happened. Because you're putting my life at risk then. You're putting Donna's life at risk, Grandma's life. How do we know what you're going to do?
Clearly, Grant hasn't fooled him.
All right, let's let this one go. It's going towards the sand.
Fuck. That's shit.
And what will go down here? He's in the sand.
The sheriffs put Grant up at a different hotel since his room at the Doubletree has been searched and his property has been seized. In the room, they found a pair of gloves that tested positive for gunshot residue on the outside. They find the information on his tablet that he had purchased more tokens with Cody's debit card in order to talk to Sylvie. The same card that Grant claimed that Cody gave him, but it's clear that Grant took it from his brother after he shot him in the face. When they searched Grant's computer, they found pictures of credit cards that belonged to his parents, his grandparents, an uncle, and one of his cousins. He was willing to steal from anybody in order to talk to a woman that he thought was having a personal relationship with him. People don't make you pay to talk to them when they really want to have a personal relationship with you. The search of his computer also included logs that a USB drive had been plugged in at 11:32 p.m. on January 24th and unplugged at 12:27 a.m. on January 25th. They showed that Chad's iPhone had been plugged into Grant's computer at 11:39 p.m. on January 24th. It was unable to connect to the computer because it would have needed prior permission, so it was unplugged. Then the phone was placed into recovery mode and plugged back into the computer at 11:43 p.m. the same night. There had been a search history on Grant's tablet about how to unlock an iPhone. The logs of Chad's iPhone showed that the USAA bank app had been unlocked using a fingerprint at 12:08 a.m. on January 25th. The defense actually brought this up, thinking it was a way to show that Chad could have still been alive after investigators theorized that they had been killed. I think what they really showed was that Grant had pressed his dead father's finger against the phone so he could log into his bank app. One thing that investigators didn't find was any evidence that Grant looked up news about what had happened in his neighborhood. One of the only things he said that was true was that he didn't look up the news after seeing the news van in his neighborhood. He only said he did because he thought it would make him seem less guilty. Investigators found a note in Grant's car that read as if Cody had written it. It said, "Grant, I'll take care of all your problems. I just need you back. I can't live without you.
Here's his fourth
I said
shot.
I'd take care of all your problems at the house, and I have. No one will bother you again regarding this. Just please come home.
Nice to save
I can't
par
take
on
this
one.
again. If you think I'm part of the problem here, then I've really lost you, and I can't take that loss after everything. When investigators asked Grant about the note, he claimed that he had written the note to memorialize what Cody had said to him the last time they talked. He was trying to make it sound like Cody had taken care of his problems, aka killed his parents,
really good.
and that he couldn't do it again, aka
Just,
killed
yeah, a
himself.
little too much on there.
Authorities never found
He's
the
got a
gun that
10-foot
actually
putt
fired the
here.
bullets that killed the Amatos. But not long before the trial began, Blake Turpin, a friend of Grant and Cody's, made a discovery.
In the end of May, I stopped a full-time position and was taking a little sabbatical, doing contract work. A couple weeks in, I got antsy and started doing some spring cleaning.
Well, nothing you
I
can do
went
about it now. It's
into
pop the bogey,
the
putt
closet
in,
and was
move
getting rid of some
on.
older stuff. And when I picked up the gun boxes, I noticed that one was significantly lighter than it should be. I opened it up and noticed the firearm and one of the two magazines it came with were missing.
Now,
And a nice putt.
did you happen to notice if any ammunition was missing?
I did, as I continued to go through the closet, I noticed the basket. Like I said, when you buy range ammo, it tends to do bulk. So usually I buy 1,000 rounds, and they come in little sealed bags. One of those bags had been kind of picked open, and I went through and double checked, and there were 94 out of the 100 rounds still in the bag. I checked the whole closet, moved the shelf under it, didn't see anything lying on the floor.
Just so we're clear, the bags themselves, they're not like Ziploc. Are they Ziploc bags?
No, they're kind of like heat sealed, closed.
In order to open it, you actually have to tear the...
Correct.
And throughout your years and times you've been shooting, have you ever yourself
let's see how he does
tore a
on
bag
this
open
one.
partially like that and taken out just a handful of bullets?
No, the ammo that I buy that comes in those bags is, like I said, just cheap, ranged, repackaged ammo. So when I go to the range, I would take the little ammo can, which is, the little bucket, and if I needed to put more, I'd open the bag, dump the whole thing in. I do have a concealed carry gun, but I don't load it with the range ammo. I have a different, nicer bullet that goes in that one.
He had discovered that the gun and ammo was missing at about 10 p.m. and reported it to the police the following morning. When authorities learned of the missing gun, they questioned Blake, and he said that only one person had been alone in his bedroom recently.
When we came back from dinner, we had gone out to a Japanese restaurant, and on the way back, Jericho and Grant both had indicated they needed to use the restroom. Jericho needed to do something a little more substantial, so I asked him to use the hallway bathroom. Grant told me he could go on back to my room and use the restroom.
Where's the restroom in relation to your room and closet in your home?
Yep. If you walk in the door to my room, it's just a square. It's the front left corner. If you would turn right immediately, the next thing you'd find is the closet door, and just past that is the bathroom.
Let's see what he does here. He's got about 220 yards to go.
Correct.
Where was the Jericho 9mm stored in your closet?
Again, on the shelving unit I have up there, I have 3 different gun boxes, and it would be inside of the box that it came in.
Now,
they've chosen a 3-iron.
How long can you estimate that the defendant was up in the area of your room?
I would say no more than 10 minutes. I was playing the game out front with Cody.
Okay, third shot.
To your knowledge, was anyone else up in your room other than Grant, other than Mr. Amato?
No, it's pretty rare. I don't usually send people back there. I also have a pit bull, and I tend to keep my door shut when we're home and when I'm not home, because I don't like him in there crawling around on the bed.
It's believed that Grant saw an opportunity to take a gun from Blake's closet, and that's the gun that he used to kill his family. That gun has never been recovered. During the trial, one of the Amato's neighbors, Jennifer Sawyer, said that sometime on the night of January 24th, at maybe 8:30 or 9:30 p.m., she heard gunshots. She said she didn't remember exactly how many, but it was less than 5. She said she brought it up to her husband, but he didn't hear the shots and he just shrugged it off. It wasn't unusual to hear gunshots since they lived in a fairly rural area. It's believed that the shots that Jennifer heard were when Grant took Cody's gun outside and fired 4 rounds to collect the shell casings. She wouldn't have heard 4 rounds altogether when the family was killed because they were all killed sometime apart. Now, I wondered why Grant would fire Cody's gun and swap out the shell casings instead of just using Cody's gun to commit the murders. And the only 2 reasons I can come up with are that Cody had his gun with him, so it wasn't available until he got home, or that Grant was just really dumb. Both options seem equally as likely. Another neighbor who supposedly heard gunshots was Rodney Funk. The defense called him to the stand to testify that he heard gunshots the following morning, but it was a complete clusterfuck. When the defense asked him if he heard gunshots the morning of January 25th, he said no. When they asked him if he heard a popping sound, he said yes. It turned into a bit of an argument between Rodney and the lawyer, who claimed his police report said he heard gunshots. He corrected the defense that he said he heard 3 popping noises at about 9 o'clock in the morning, and he told police that they could have been gunshots, but he didn't hear gunshots. He heard popping noises. He did confirm that the popping noises came from the direction of the Amato residence. The prosecutor cleared things up pretty quickly.
What level or degree of certainty are you that what you heard were gunshots? Do you know what I'm asking? If you have like a scale of 1, you don't know what it is, and 10, you're absolutely certain were gunshots. What level of certainty do you think you're at?
They weren't gunshots, they were just popping sounds. Now, what a gun sounds like inside a house being discharged, I have no idea. But it didn't sound like it was just unusual hearing the popping sounds that early in the morning. Then later on, noonish, a friend called and said there was a homicide by your house. Then I was trying to put 2 to 2 together.
Okay, so when you initially heard them, you didn't think they were gunshots?
No, sir. It was just unusual hearing those popping sounds that early in the morning. Could have been a hammer, somebody working around on the property, I have no idea.
The problem with what Rodney heard was that it was supposed to be at around 9 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, let's see what
that was after Cody should have been at work, and it was about the same time that Deputy Motorson was at the Amato home doing a welfare check. Deputy Motorson said he banged on the door and pounded on the windows. Is it possible that Rodney heard Deputy Motorson trying to get the attention of the Amatos? It's much more likely than the Amatos being shot at 9 a.m. the morning of January 25th. To this day, Grant Amato maintains his innocence. So, based on the claim that he left the house at about midnight, the prosecution describes what would have needed to happen in the house in order for the murders to not be carried out by Grant.
Let's say it's at midnight, or 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. What does he find? He finds Margaret Amato sitting at her desk. We know she's sitting at her desk because dead bodies don't move on their own. Sitting at her desk, not doing anything. Not doing anything. Remember all that testimony about computers? The last time a human being touched that computer was 4:44 p.m. Remember that? 4:44 p.m. So that means Margaret Amato had to have been sitting at that desk. Where am I at now? Midnight? 6 hours. Just sitting there.
It's going to end off his round.
Doing nothing.
And this will be
Intruder walks in,
if
pops her in the back of the head, puts a bullet right in the back.
All right, ending his round with a
Now, to play devil's advocate, she could have done other things for 6 hours and then just happened to sit back down at her computer when she got killed.
Good.
I mean, it's possible. Then,
okay, now, dead bodies don't move themselves, so let's go to the next one.
Stuff out there.
Chad's dad. Chad the dad's in the kitchen. Now,
and at the end
let's
of
talk
this
about
one,
that.
scorecard
Somehow this intruder
well, that is
kills
all
Margaret.
she wrote for me.
runs across the other side of the house.
Ripping around the links with you today.
Where Chad
See you next
is still wearing the clothes he was wearing when he left work. Remember that video at CBS? He was wearing those jeans, the black shoes, the white shirt, the white socks, and I think it was like a gray shirt, a gray brown shirt, right? With his lunchbox by the floor. So sometime between midnight and 6 a.m., Chad is standing in the kitchen with his head facing up to the cabinet. We know his head was facing up because he's heard the testimony from the medical examiner yesterday. She said the trajectory from the bullet was down to up. So what does that inference? Well, he's probably going towards the cabinet, put stuff away. So he's standing with his head to the cabinet, his back to where the shooter is. The shooter comes all the way around the back side of the house. And by the way, Chad apparently can't hear because he didn't hear the bullet ring out from his wife when she got shot. And bang, second shot of the night, of this mystery night. Bullet in the back of his head. He goes down. It may testify that that first shot wasn't necessarily a kill life. And you can see, you don't need forensics to see those fingers in that blood. Those are his hands. His hands are comfortable. We'll talk about that later too, because there was one finger that wasn't. But anyway, this intruder then, second shot.
It's important to point out that the prosecutor says that Chad's hands were covered in blood except for one of his fingers. That was the finger that Grant used to unlock Chad's banking app. He picked up his dead father's hand, wiped the blood off one finger, and pressed it against his phone. Why? So he could try to get more money to feed his addiction to a cam girl. Then...
Hey now, forget it. 3 people in the house. So now somehow, use your imagination. And we're in the imaginary doubt section of my presentation. This intruder materializes immediately across that utility hallway and up against the wall, parallel to where Cody Amato is just hanging out in the garage doorway, wearing the clothes and the badge and his backpack that he was wearing the night before. He was standing right there on the floor. Shoots him in the face.
Then, this random intruder finds Cody's gun, goes outside to shoot 4 rounds, collects the shell casings and swaps them out for the shell casings from the murders. He also rolls Chad's body over and puts a holstered gun backwards on his belt and cleans off one of his fingers. He does all this and leaves the house without taking anything else. He doesn't take any firearms, no computers, no wallets, no video game systems, not Margaret's diamond wedding ring, nothing. Just kills 3 people, does some weird shit to the scene, and leaves. The other thing that I think points to Grant as the murderer is the chicken. Grant told detectives during his interview that his mother had taken some chicken out of the freezer to defrost for dinner before he was kicked out of the house. If he left the house and everything was fine, why was the chicken found on the counter by investigators the next day? Why didn't the chicken get cooked, put back, or thrown away? There's no reason for that chicken to have not been cooked if Grant didn't kill his family members earlier in the day when authorities theorized he did. The fact is that he killed his mother and father before dinner time, which he said was usually around 7 p.m., and he killed Cody as soon as he walked in the door. And because of it, the chicken stayed on the counter and never got cooked. Grant Amato was found guilty of 3 counts of first-degree premeditated murder. He was eligible for the death penalty, but the jury wasn't able to come to a unanimous decision. The judge sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Of course, Grant Amato's defense lawyers have filed an appeal to the conviction, citing 10 little nitpicky complaints about decisions that the judge made during the trial. I haven't found any news of a decision by the District Court of Appeals, but the whole thing seems pretty weak. If you're the victim of domestic abuse, please reach out to someone for help. Please call the National Domestic Abuse Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE. That's 1-800.
Up against the wall. Their phone is just hanging out in the electrical light. We're in the
laser is bringing a different perspective. Hello, Moto. Keep it quilted means you keep it the best. 3 layers of plush comfort you can see and feel.
Jennifer Pan had her every move controlled by her parents. She began lying about her activities in order to keep up with her parents' expectations. But when the lies began unraveling, she had to take drastic action to free herself from their grasp. This is Monsters. Han Pan was born in Vietnam, and after school his family immigrated to Canada in 1979. Bick also immigrated to Canada around the same time, and the two eventually met and married. They both began working for a local manufacturing company, Magna International. Han was a tool and die maker, and Bick made auto parts. They settled down in the Scarborough area of Toronto. They had 2 children, Jennifer in 1986 and Felix in 1989. Their family placed a lot of importance on success and image, wanting both of their children to be the best they could be. Unfortunately, sometimes that family dynamic can become more of a burden for the child than a benefit. Jennifer started piano lessons at age 4 and began figure skating at age 8. She began competing in figure skating competitions and was hoping to make it to the 2010 Olympics. That dream was ripped away when she tore her ACL and had to stop skating. She took martial arts classes for a while, and after she gave up figure skating, she began playing the flute. People refer to Han and Bick as tiger parents. Wikipedia says tiger parenting is a form of strict or demanding parenting. Tiger parents push and pressure their children to attain high levels of academic achievement or success in high-status extracurricular activities such as music, using authoritarian parenting methods. Jennifer was not allowed to go to dances, parties, or have a boyfriend, claiming that she should refrain from dating until after graduating from college. Jennifer attended Mary Ward Catholic School, and she stayed up late into the night studying in order to keep up with her parents' expectations. Her father, Han, was baptized at birth as Catholic, and her mother, Vic, was a Buddhist. Jennifer said she practiced a combination of both religions. She was an excellent student until the 9th grade when her grades started falling. She always got top marks in music, but the rest of her grades were in the 70% range. She would use old report cards and a photocopier to forge report cards with straight A's to give to her parents. This is where the lying to keep her parents happy started. In 11th grade, Jennifer met Daniel Wong, who played trumpet in the school band where she played flute. These first clips are from her second interview, where she goes into more detail about the incident and her life.
We went to high school together.
See how this tee
he helped
shot
me through a really
fares
difficult
for him.
time in high school when I have asthma, but it wasn't a concern. It was only a concern when I was younger. But when I went over to Europe, a lot of sick people were smoking cigarettes, and it acted up over there, and he took care of me over there.
When did you go to Europe?
2003.
Okay, and how long were you there for?
Here's their 7-iron.
Okay. So this is 2003 when you and Danny started dating?
Later on in 2003, we were just friends.
Okay. During a school band trip to Europe, after performing in an auditorium full of smokers, Jennifer had a bad asthma attack, and Daniel calmed her down and coached her through her breathing. After that, the two became good friends and eventually started dating.
So how does your relationship with Danny develop? Where does it go and how long does it last?
It lasted about 6 years. It began in the summer of 2003, before my grade 12 year. We were just really good friends, and I guess it just happened. Like, we just started going out. Well, saying that we were going out, but
here we go. This putt for the bird.
I didn't really get to see him much.
Let's talk about that. Why didn't you get the chance to see him much?
I wasn't allowed to have a boyfriend.
And that was when you were 18?
I was 17.
17, turning in your 18th year? You're grade 11 or going to grade 12?
I'm going to grade 12.
Okay. And so who was against you having a boyfriend?
My father.
Your father? How was your mother in
A bit
this?
too firm on that one. And,
she took a back seat to his opinion. She would tell me that I gotta find someone who was devoted to me. But at that time, my father was the one that enforced the rules.
And what were the issues your father had with a boyfriend? Was it Danny in particular, or was it just a boy?
Just any boy.
Daniel and Jennifer started dating in secret due to her father's prohibition of boyfriends. They started the 12th grade attending the same school, but Daniel started falling behind at Mary Ward and was transferred to Cardinal Carter Academy. He would still come to Jennifer's school and visit her, and she would skip school to go visit him. This didn't help her grades, but even though she wasn't getting straight A's, she was still accepted to Ryerson University. But then she failed her calculus course and didn't graduate from high school. Due to her failing grade, Ryerson withdrew their offer. In an effort to not have her parents find out about her real high school grades, she dug her lie a little deeper and told them she would be starting Ryerson in the fall.
I wanted to do kinesiology, but my father was very adamant on doing something in the medical field that was a little bit more, in his opinion, more more successful, I guess you can say. He knew I didn't have the stomach for being a doctor, so he wanted me to become a pharmacist.
Okay. Did you go to school for pharmacy? Did you get any university for pharmacy? So if you finish your grade 12, you go to your OIC year?
Okay.
That grade 12 is you finish your OIC year.
I didn't have OIC. I finished my grade 12.
And then what do you do for the next few years? While your dad's wanting you to get into the medical field, what do you do?
I was trying to get into piano.
What school?
I was still taking classes at a school, but it's still recognized in the community as a teacher's license.
Through the Royal Conservatory?
Yes.
You can correct me if you're Canadian, but from what I can find, an OAC year is an additional year of secondary school for students who plan to go to college. It looks like they have eliminated it from being mandatory, though. She wanted to study kinesiology, which is the study of the mechanics of body movement, which sounds interesting. She says her father wanted her to do something more successful, but what I think she meant is that her father thought that becoming a kinesiologist wasn't good enough, and that she needed to get a career that held a more respectable view. She says at one point in her police interview that her parents weren't rich, but her mom drove a Lexus, her dad drove a Mercedes, and they had a nice big house. Her parents wanted to maintain that type of image.
What did you lie to him? What did you tell him?
That I was going to school.
Setting up for our third shot.
For just science.
For science.
Bachelor of Science.
You would have had bills for school. How is that coming up? How are these bills being paid for university that you weren't going to?
I was working at Eastside Mario's, and I took care of myself.
And
so financially, my father was never took hand in bills. So he didn't know anything about bills.
Did your mom know that you weren't going to university?
No.
So both your parents thought you had gone to university?
Yes.
Okay. And how long did they still to this point in time think that you had gone to university for pharmacy?
Jennifer told her parents that she was going to do 2 years of science and then transfer to the University of Toronto's pharmacology program. She told her parents that she had gotten a loan and that she had won a $3,000 scholarship to cover the cost of schooling. She even went as far as to buy used textbooks and other supplies to keep up her charade. Each morning, while her parents thought Jennifer was going to school, she would really take a bus downtown and use the internet at the public library to look up science topics and make notes about the subject to show her parents back at home. She, of course, would spend any time she could with Daniel and also got a job where he worked. Jennifer first started working as a server at Eastside Mario's, but eventually started working as a bartender at Boston Pizza, where Daniel was the kitchen manager. She also taught piano lessons and took some classes at the Royal Conservatory to become a piano teacher. After 2 years of lying about going to college, Han was expecting Jennifer to transfer to the University of Toronto. Instead of fessing up to her deception and getting her life back on track, she told her father that she was accepted into the school's pharmacology program and would be attending U of T that fall. Not only that, but she doubled down on her lie and suggested that she stay with her friend at Topaz 3 days a week in order to make her commute better. Her parents believed that would be a good idea. Less commute meant more time for studying. The reality was that Jennifer actually went and stayed at Daniel's house during those days. Daniel still lived with his parents, and Jennifer told them that her parents agreed to let her stay there. Daniel's parents constantly suggested meeting Han and Vic, but Jennifer kept blowing them off. As if her current lies weren't enough, she eventually told her parents that she started volunteering at a blood testing lab at the hospital with sick kids. She told them that she would be working late-night shifts and suggested that she stay over at Topaz's house more often. This eventually aroused Han's suspicion, and he insisted that they drop her off at her shift the next day. When Jennifer went into the hospital, she noticed that her mom was following her, so she hid in the hospital until her parents left. The next morning, her parents called Topaz and asked to speak to Jennifer. Topaz forgot which day it was and told the Pans that her daughter wasn't there. When Jennifer arrived home, her lies finally came crashing down around her. She confessed that she didn't volunteer at sick kids. She wasn't attending the pharmacology program at the University of Toronto, and that she had really been staying with Daniel. Her parents didn't take it well.
My mother, she said, at first she was, not supportive, but she said, you need to tell me. And she basically gave me the sex talk, which basically was, one moment could ruin your entire life. But once my father found out, without even knowing him, he automatically put judgment.
What kind of judgment did your father pass on him?
He blamed my lying and even racial
a little less than pure on that swing.
Profiling on him.
And what does that mean? I don't know about the racial profiling.
He is half Filipino, half Chinese.
Yes.
And my father associated him with Filipino and said that, he wasn't a good match for me. He wasn't going anywhere in life, and that he wouldn't be able to support a family.
Because he was Filipino, he wasn't a good match for her. So they took away her phone and restricted her to a curfew.
They pretty much make sure that I wouldn't contact him again.
And how do they do that?
They take away my cell phone and restrict internet access. Like, they have to be in the room or not at all.
Do you have a curfew?
If I go out with a friend that they know, I have to be home before 9.
Before 9 o'clock?
Yes.
And is that even up until Monday?
Final
Did you have a curfew up until Monday?
Only 2 strokes
technically,
off
but I haven't gone out for a while.
And why is it that you haven't gone out for a while?
Because they gave me an ultimatum to either choose Daniel or to choose them about a year and a half ago, or about a year and a half ago. And I chose to stay home with my family.
Into the water.
But even though he had moved on, we still wanted to be friends.
Let's see how he does.
We went through a lot. I was there for him, and he was there for me when we needed each other. So whenever I could, I would sneak a phone call here, sneak a phone call there. I'd ask a friend of mine to pick me up and to take me to see him, and then take me back.
She's 22 years old at this point. Her parents have taken away her phone and given her a curfew like she's a teenager. They basically told a grown adult that she's grounded. Jennifer's parents made her quit her jobs other than teaching piano. which was the one thing that Jennifer still loved doing. After a couple of weeks, she was able to go out and give piano lessons, but her parents kept a close eye on her. Even then, she still visited Daniel when she could and talked to him on the phone in secret. She also enrolled in a calculus course so that she could graduate from high school. She must have had to do that in secret because she had admitted that she hadn't been attending U of T, but as far as her parents knew, she had graduated high school and attended Ryerson for 2 years.
And he's around 235 yards out. Let's see what he does.
And when her mother went into her room in the morning to get it, she noticed that they gave her an ultimatum that she could either go be with Daniel or stay there with them. In police, his family was always more important. She told a detective that her father told her that if she chose Daniel, he would hire a private investigator to follow her around, so I'm not sure how much of a choice it was. She was still willing to sneak phone calls with Daniel, but she was too afraid to leave the house. Daniel had grown frustrated with the situation and broke up with Jennifer. Obviously, Jennifer was upset about the breakup, but when she found out that he had started dating another girl, Christine, she really fell into a depression. She was hoping to ride out her parents' control until they could finally be together for good, and she felt like she wasn't good enough because he wasn't willing to wait. Jennifer turned to the only coping mechanism she knew, lying. She told Daniel that she was home alone one day and she was attacked.
That is something I lied to him about.
Okay, tell me about that.
I told him I was raped, but I was just very depressed and...
This one's going in the wrong direction, I think.
You haven't reported it to the police, right? This is an interaction between you and an ex-boyfriend. Okay,
setting up now.
You're not in any trouble for this, and it's important that we clear it up because he's telling us stuff, and then we're coming back to you. So,
yes, but this is something I lied to him about.
Okay. And why did? And you say you were depressed, and when did this happen? When did you tell him about this?
What?
Oh, nice little chip there.
A year ago. And what was it that you told him?
That someone came to the door, and when I went to open the door, they pushed me down and raped me.
Did you give descriptions? Did you provide descriptions to him about it?
I might have. I don't remember exactly what I said.
Personally, don't have faith that he's going to do
it. But you're telling me to my face that this never happened. Okay. So it's not. This isn't something that we need to be looking at as something that's tied to this.
That was my lie to him.
Okay.
She lied to him to get attention and also to make Christine look bad. She claimed that Christine had orchestrated the attack and then said that she had sent her a bullet in the mail. Daniel told her to report it, but she couldn't because, well, it never happened. She also told the detective that she had been receiving threats.
Have you been experiencing anything, what you would call it, in the last little while, of any type of threats or threatening behavior?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
He says it's just a friend, but everyone says it's his girlfriend. She has messaged me, telling me to back off, to leave Daniel alone.
And he's got around 4 feet to go
and he's messaged me and he's like, "Is that you calling?" But I wasn't calling. I'd be on the phone with him and he's like, my Rogers line, because I called him on the phone he gave me.
Yes.
And he'd say that my Rogers line was...
At the end of the day, you've wound up at 2 over par. Well, on behalf of myself and the team here at HB Studios, thank you very much for the round. We'll see you next time.
Andrew Montemayor. Jennifer claimed that Andrew used to brag about robbing people at knife point, and after hearing about Jennifer's problems with her dad, Ann and Jennifer were transported to the hospital for crime. I don't believe she's being considered as a suspect at all. At the time of the incident, Jennifer's brother, Felix, wasn't living at home. He was getting a degree in engineering and only stayed at his parents' house periodically. At the time, it was only Han, Bick, and Jennifer who were in the home. Detective Slade asks her to start at the beginning of the day and tell him what happened. She explained that her mother had awakened her at about 9:30 in the morning so they could go visit her grandfather. He was in a nursing home and wasn't doing well, so Bick and another relative were going to visit him. When they left the house, she said there were police officers all around and they told them that there was a gas leak and they wouldn't be able to use that part of the street. Bick was going to go down the street and use a friend's car, but the officer told her that he had just received word that the street was cleared and they could use the road. At this point, Jennifer decided to stay home and practice her piano. Bick returned home at about 3 p.m. and began making dinner shortly after. Han would normally arrive home around 4 p.m., but that day he was late because he forgot to lock something at work and had to turn around and go back. The fact that he didn't call to let her know that he was going to be late was something that Bick argued with him about. Jennifer said that she and her mother ate dinner together and her father ate alone after he got home. After dinner, she called a friend, Adrian, and had him come over to watch television, something they did on a regular basis. Han had gone out with her uncle after dinner to go shopping, and he returned home about 6:30 p.m. Then, Vic changed and left to go dancing at 7 p.m., something she did every Monday with other family members. By then, Han had gone upstairs to the office to read the Vietnamese news and watch Vietnamese soaps. Adrian left the house at 9 p.m., and Jennifer went upstairs to get ready for bed. Han was still in the office, on the computer. Vic came home at about 9:15, while Jennifer was in her room, talking on the phone to a past coworker named Ed. She asked Ed to hold on and went downstairs to say hello to her mom, before going back up to her room. By now, Han had gone into the master bedroom to go to sleep. Ed had hung up the phone, so Jennifer called him back and they continued talking. Sometime between 9:30 and 10 p.m., Jennifer heard her mother calling for her father. She said that her mother's tone indicated that something was wrong, and she also heard unfamiliar voices. She told Ed that she had to go and went to investigate.
Suddenly I just heard my mom calling for my dad to come down, and that's when I lowered the volume on my TV, and I could hear the voices weren't any voices I was very familiar with. And so I was scared and I couldn't move. I just sat in my room for a while. And then I thought I heard them all leave the top floor, and I peered out of my bedroom door. And the guy was there and he came at me and had string in his hand and tied my arms back and said, I have a gun behind your back. Do what I say. If you do what I say, then no one will get hurt. Where is the money? Show me where your money is. I have still a bit of money put aside from when I was waitressing, cash. So I showed him where it was, and he took it and put it in his pocket, I think. And then they pushed me to my parents' room and asked me when the money was there, and I didn't really know. So they kind of one was right beside me, blocking my way to the door, while the other one turned over the bed to find some more cash in Mom's bedside table.
The intruders were looking for money. This is her initial story, which is quick and not extremely detailed. She says that she doesn't know how they got into the home. Normally, the last person to go to bed checks to make sure the doors are locked, and she wasn't sure if anyone had done that yet, as her mother was still awake.
The sliding glass door, is it locked all the time?
Occasionally, it's forgotten to be locked. But for the most part, we do check it before we go to bed. Before everybody. The last person is supposed to check everything before turning in.
But on some occasions, how do you know that it's been unlocked?
when my mother goes out to water the plants the next morning, it's open.
And she makes a comment about that?
She comments to my father that he had forgotten when he went out to water his grass and left the night before.
What about your front door? How do you, what is that when you guys are home, or when you guys are home in the house, do you lock your front door, or do you keep it open?
Occasionally it's left unlocked because the way our family is, we have family that come over after dinner, so sometimes we leave the door unlocked, but it will always be locked before bed. The last person going to bed.
The last person always locks. And you said something about activates the alarm as well?
We activate the alarm before we leave the house.
So it's not activated when you're in the house and you're going to bed. It's only when there's no one in the house.
Yeah.
She explained that there were 3 doors into the house. The front door, the back sliding door, and a door that goes into the house from the garage.
My name is Mia McCray. I'm with LLS Trucking, and I work with my mom, Lakeisha Anderson.
I'm the owner. I also drive. We own 7 trucks, and I have 4 owner-operators and 1 box truck.
Working with Amazon Relay is very convenient for us.
Everything is on the app. It makes my job much easier. Box trucks and power only loads is what we do. And we do contracts and booking on the load board. So everything is very simple with the Relay app.
Here's to making every moment berry. For every pet on your list, Petco.
He grabbed my arm and he pulled it to the back and said, "Give me your arm as well." And then I was trying to make a wide X so that I could later loosen if I needed it to, but he had pulled really, really tight. And I guess he felt my flinch, and that's when he quickly tied the second knot. I think, I don't exactly know, all I know is like I flinched and then it got tighter.
So you were bound behind you?
Behind, yes.
Okay.
She said that she was tied up in her room and then taken into her parents' room next.
In which then they dragged me down the stairs and made me kneel at the bottom, telling me to face down on the floor, and the other guy has a gun behind my head, and asked my mom where her purse was. My mom kept trying to get up, and they kept telling her, "Sit down," and so I didn't want her to get hurt, so I told her, "Mom, sit down." They were trying to find her wallet, but her English thinker, so she kept saying "purse." They kept pushing her down onto the chair.
Okay. Take your time. Take your time. All this is very important, so take your time.
They kept all the lights off on the main floor. The only time there was light was when they opened the fridge door to see if they could find where my mom's purse was. I didn't. At that point, I saw 3 figures of men. One with a hoodie, like the one I could see the most clearly, he had a hoodie on, and I believe he had a bandana of some sort covering from like his lower, under his eyes down.
It's important to note that she said that they took her downstairs and had her kneel at the bottom of the stairs and to face down on the floor. She can see one of the men has a hoodie and a black bandana. She eventually explains that there are 3 men, all black, and her and the detective start referring to them as number 1, number 2, and number 3. Number 1 is the one that does almost all the talking. He seems to be in charge, and he has a pistol.
He was medium build.
Okay.
I don't remember any of his, unfortunately. The only thing I can remember was him, he had dreadlocks.
So can you describe his race to me?
He was black.
Was his head covered? Was his face covered? Do you remember anything about that?
Just that his dreadlocks were kind of like flopping all over the place. I couldn't really see his face, and they kept the lights dark as much as possible.
How long were the dreadlocks? Were they, like
say they...
Get a Humana Medicare Advantage prescription drug plan, and you'll get $1,000 copays on hundreds of routine prescriptions on our MAPD plans, offering the benefits that matter to you, matters to us. That's Humana. Call or go online to learn.
It was 6 years ago today that Texas law enforcement began what would be one of the most notorious manhunts here in state history. January 31st, 2013, dressed all in black, someone gunned down Kaufman County Prosecutor Mark Hasse. It was in broad daylight in Town Square. Then March, the same killer brutally shot and killed District Attorney Felton and his wife Cynthia in their own home. Tonight, CBS 11 IT reporter Ginger Allen sits down with the one person who has spent the last few years communicating with Eric Williams behind bars.
Eric Williams and his wife were convicted of these 3 murders. I wanted to talk to both of them, but neither of them would agree to an interview with me. However, they have spent hours with Catherine Casey. They've told their stories about what was happening when investigators were searching for them. They've talked about what has happened the last 6 years behind bars. And they've sent her letters, even Christmas cards. Casey is a well-known true crimes writer. She wrote In Plain Sight, a novel about the Kaufman County murders. And now she has incredible insight about what was going on inside the Williams minds during these heinous crimes and inside their homes during the manhunt for them. Tonight, I sit down with Casey. She talks about how Eric adamantly denies the murders and then how Tim describes every detail of them, including her overwhelming guilt today. Doug, I'll see you tonight at 10.
We will look forward to it. Ginger Allen, thank you.
I just took a mood aroused gummy. Since not everyone is a total stoner like my husband,
Guilty.
mood takes the guesswork out of piano, so you know exactly how you're going to feel. Whether you're a goth guru or just trying it for the first time, click on the mood you want to feel and then go for it. Yes, 15 milligrams. Want to relax after work? There's a mood for that.
Want to feel energized? There's a mood for that.
I found mood after my hip replacement.
I only wish Dad was here to share these with us.
Yeah, but he's a pre-roll guy.
Wronged and seeking payback. Well, in this story, we don't have cowboys. Instead of horses, we have a Segway. But what we do have is a story of revenge. And a justice of the peace gone rogue in the town of Kaufman, Texas. Let's giddy up. Kaufman is a small place in northeast Texas, about 30 miles-ish from Dallas. Population of about 7,500 people. It's a rural enough place, but I think you'll miss it kind of deal. It's the seat of Kaufman County, which has over 100,000 people in it. And in 2013, like something out of a thriller, right, prosecutors started dying. Mark Hasse was a very experienced prosecutor, having spent years going after organized gangs in the Dallas District Attorney's Office. Bit of a Harvey Dent style, he moved to Kaufman to essentially get out of the crowded city life. He started working at the Kaufman County District Attorney's Office as Assistant District Attorney, working under newly elected District Attorney Mike McClelland. And he seemed to be a great prosecutor and generally well liked by everyone in the office. Mark Hasse got along great with his boss, Mike McClelland. Everything was hunky-dory. Until it wasn't. See, then the 31st of January 2013 came around.
Kaufman County 901. Yes, sir, we've got a gentleman on Grove Street and Madison that just got shot. Full feet. Oh my God, it's Mark Hasse, he's Assistant District Attorney.
Just before 9 a.m., gunshots rang out from near the courthouse in Kaufman. 5 shots, pause, 3 shots. Authorities arrived quickly enough on the scene, and lying on the pavement was 57-year-old Mark Hasse. No one knew why Mark had been gunned down in broad daylight while on his way to work, on his way to the office. You know, there was no weapon found, there was no casings found even. It was seen to have been, you know, the brazen work of, well, a killer. The balls on them doing it at rush hour, although then again it's at Kaufman. Probably not much happening.
Kaufman County Assistant District Attorney Mark Hasse was shot multiple times in the parking lot a block from the courthouse. Police are looking for 1 or possibly 2 suspects. Witnesses say were dressed in black. Police say there was a very short confrontation between gunman and Hasse just before the attack. County Judge Bruce Wood.
Just an outstanding person individually, but he was also just a very well-known and very well-respected prosecutor for the district attorney's office. This is just a horrible situation, horrible tragedy.
The 57-year-old Hasse had been a prosecutor in the county DA's office for 3 years. He was earlier a prosecutor in Dallas, where he worked on mob cases. Investigators do not have a motive, but they described the shooting as a targeted attack.
People of the town, though, were on edge, especially, you know, people from the district attorney's office. You know, high profile enough, assistant district attorney gunned down in broad daylight. You know, the district attorney, Mike McClelland, actually made it easier for everybody to get a concealed handgun license. People were just worried about what the shit had happened. Witnesses had seen this shooting and said a man, covered up, couldn't make out his face, had escaped in the passenger seat of a silver 4-door getaway car. So, it seems like there was 2 people involved in the death of Mark Hasse. And another thing was that a different witness who didn't see it, but was in a garage nearby, heard what happened shortly before the shots rang out. They said they heard Mark talking with this person, and Mark apparently was saying, "No, I'm sorry," and then gunshots. District Attorney Mike McClelland and Mark's good friend, he wasn't having any of it.
I hope that the people that did this are watching.
Well, let's see what happens for this fella in the bunker.
We're very confident that we're going to find you. We're going to pull you out of whatever hole you're in. We're going to bring you back, and that the people of Kaufman County prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law. Kaufman County, the state of Texas, and especially my office, has suffered a devastating loss today.
What's the part about this that you lost?
The fact that I can't reach out and grab somebody and do something about it right now. Because I would have been really bad.
Okay, 11 feet to deal with.
Other law enforcement officials, Texas Rangers, ATF, FBI, descended on Kaufman. They weren't going to let, you know, someone murder one of their own and get away with it. This became a major case. So it didn't take long, you know, to put 2 and 2 together and figure out why a prosecutor may be, you know, on someone's bad list. Authorities started going through everyone he had prosecuted in Kaufman in the 3 years he had been a felony prosecutor there. However, though there were numerous cases, a metric shit-ton, nothing seemed to fit. No violent crime.
He's got 3 feet
Nothing
to go.
that would warrant murder or was related to gangs.
Okay,
but back in Dallas, 30 miles away, Back in the day, he had put away murderers, violent offenders, and some had been released by 2013.
At even par. As we head to the next
a week into the investigation, promising leads
birdies are out there, though.
Were non-existent.
Teeing it up now in the second hole of this contest. Ooh, that was a little awkward on the swing there. Well, that approach kind of missed the mark a little bit. And he's ready to tee off here. Let's see how this goes.
4 weeks later, right, a tip came in. A person left an anonymous tip on their website saying that they were in a bar in Kaufman and had heard 2 lads yapping away about the death of Mark Hasse, and they seemed to be pretty knowledgeable about it, hint hint. However, there wasn't enough for the police to follow up on it because, you know, the entire system was anonymous. They couldn't contact the tipster, and he more or less said, yeah, there's 2 people talking about it, maybe you should know about it. And it's like, oh wow, great, thanks. That's helpful. So, you know, looking through some of the cases Mark had prosecuted, and specifically the way he had been killed, like
and this one,
execution style, gangs became like their #1 lead, or #1 thing they were investigating. Specifically Mexican cartels, Dios mío, or even fucking Nazis, the Aryan Brotherhood. I hate these guys. See, 3 months before, a shitload of them had been arrested, and they even had made a threat that they wanted to, quote, get even. The Kaufman County District Attorney's Office had played a role in that investigation.
Right now, more breaking news. In the shocking opening of the head of Colorado's prison system, Tom Clements was gunned down as he answered the front door of his Monument home last night.
7 weeks after Mark's death, the head of the Colorado Department of Corrections was murdered on his front door by a member of the Aryan Brotherhood, Evan Ebel. So everyone was becoming nervous that they were next, especially as this Evan Ebel was still on the run. And when he was pulled over in Texas, he shot the shit out of the sheriff's deputy.
That putt will drop for birdie. Nice. That'll bring it down to even par.
The deputy, by the way, survived. Can't say the same for Evan after a police chase and a shootout.
Update on location.
Looks like this one's in the fairway. Okay, let's send it. Yeah, we'll take that. And from here, he's looking at around 155
We have not
yards
had that
to
discussion as of yet.
So, things were looking bad, but as the weeks went on, fewer and fewer tips were coming in, and the investigators working on the Mark Hasse case, you know, the number of them just started to dwindle as things started to peter out.
This is an 8-iron. This one's heading a little bit too much to the right. And this one's about 130 yards away.
And then it happened again. On March 30th, 2013, friends and family were supposed to pop over to the McLelands for an Easter dinner. And when Mike and his wife Cynthia weren't answering any texts or calls that morning, a friend came over to check if they were okay and everything was ready for the dinner. Inside, shell casings were found right at the front door. Cynthia was found lying in the living room, and District Attorney Mike McLeland was found also. Both had been gunned down. Mike was found with shell cases right by him. Again, like his friend and assistant Mark Hasse, execution style.
Green side. He's in the rough.
So, obviously connected. You know, someone was going after the Kaufman District Attorney's office, starting with Assistant District Attorney Mark Hasse, and then going after head honcho himself, District Attorney Mike McClelland. But things were really dark. His wife also, who, you know, whatever they were after, it was obviously someone a grudge against the system. They were going after family members now. The hunt for the killer had started to die down, but now it just ramped up again with even more vigor as things got even darker. But, you know, everybody was questioning, who's next?
And we begin on this Saturday night with breaking news. Kaufman County District Attorney Mike McClelland and his wife have been found shot to death inside their home. And sources are telling News 8 tonight this does not appear to be a murder-suicide. The stunning news comes just 2 months after the murder of Kaufman County Assistant District Attorney Mark Hasse. No one was ever arrested in that case.
So, how did someone gain access to the McClelland home? There was no sign of forced entry, front door unlocked, and Mike had guns by the front door, ones he obviously never got a chance to use. The cases were from an AR-15, so a big old gun. Home security showed that this intruder had entered the home shortly before 7 a.m., left just 2 minutes later, and in that short span of time, 20 shots were fired.
Okay, the putt drops, and that's
About a day later, on that same anonymous tip line I mentioned earlier, a message came in saying,
finished up their round. All right, this one is in the books, and you've won. Fine one. And that's that. I had a lot of fun out there with you today. Thanks for taking me around the course. We'll see you next time.
The authorities replied with, yeah, you have our attention now. I was a man.
The only thing better than White Claw Black Cherry Hard Seltzer is mixing it with White Claw Black Cherry flavored vodka.
A man named Eric Williams on his little Segway. God, I hate those things.
Cooperated with law enforcement. I certainly wish them the best in bringing justice for this just incredibly egregious act.
However, he hadn't been properly interviewed by the investigators at this stage because he was all lawyered up. See, over a year before all of this started happening back in 2011, Eric Williams had been prosecuted by both Mark Hasse and Mike McClelland. He had been prosecuted by both of them, both the victims, for theft. Something that was not too serious, to be fair. Mark Hasse said in the closing arguments of this trial, again a trial for stealing tree monitors, said that guy over there sitting at the end of the table, Eric Williams, is an elected official, but is nothing more than a thief and a burglar. Might not be a big fan of Mark and Mike. So when Eric Williams... You don't have any more? You got rid of the hell? What? No, I'm trying to sell. And it's just hard to sell itself. And they had a little look around his place and found gun parts, ones that matched the weapons used in both murder scenes. He'd also been doing a good bit of Googling of both Mark and Mike before the killings. Something he would lie about. He was like, oh, don't know what you're talking about. While the Texas Rangers were like, yeah, you're internet cracks that, right? You should probably know that. Getting a warrant, they also found out he owned the car. He owned it under a false name. The car seen by witnesses near Mark Hasse and by CCTV near the McClelland home. They also found on his computer that Eric just so happened to be Googling the names of the attorneys currently involved in the murder investigations. So he was adding more names to his list. They also found this, handwritten in his home. That is the user ID from the anonymous tip system, the one that claimed responsibility for the attacks, and also the earlier tip when someone said they overheard people talking about the Mark Hasse death in a bar. Eric Williams was arrested for making a terrorist threat, not for murder. Yet, not enough evidence, but the next day, a friend called the authorities investigating, telling them that they had rented a storage unit to Eric. He's been arrested. Maybe you should pop by it. Have a goo. In it, they found the car that they had been looking for. And not only that. Police uniforms, vests, badges, a shitload of ammo, and a shitload of guns. They also found, in jars, homemade napalm. Wow. They also had CCTV footage of him going into the storage unit the morning of the McClelland deaths, right before he went to their house, and then returning right after. However, the lab would reveal that none of the weapons found in the storage unit were the murder weapons, but they had enough to charge Eric Williams with 3 counts of capital murder. The motive was simply revenge. In December 2013, Eric Williams went on trial, first off for the murder of Cynthia. The prosecutors wanted to be sure they had their ducks in a row, hence why he was tried separately for each. The defense went with, well, you know, they never found a murder weapon, so what you on about? Come on.
There is no known murder weapon in this case. There's no one who can place Eric Williams in that scene at McClelland home. No one.
After 90 minutes, the jury found him guilty.
We, the jury, unanimously find the defendant, Eric Lyle Williams, guilty of capital murder as charged in the indictment.
You see, what happened to be actually quite a strange series of events was that shortly after Mark Hasse's death, District Attorney Mike McClelland actually suspected Eric Williams of being responsible for it, and he didn't keep that suspicion to himself. He would mention it to everybody, but, I mean, they didn't have enough to go on. Shortly after Mark Hasse was killed, investigators did go to his house, and his arm was in a sling from an injury. Apparently didn't exist. He's like, yeah, of course I'm not responsible for killing somebody. My arm's fucked. They tested his hands for gunshot residue, no dice. But Mike McClelland had his suspicions about him right until the moment he showed up on his own door. Showing up wearing, you know, police uniform, SWAT uniform, getting them to open the door to him, pretending to be a cop, and then as soon as Cynthia or Mike opened the door...
Yeah, and let's see how this whole goes down for him.
Remember a witness had seen the perpetrator of the Mark Hasse death escape in the passenger seat of a car that drove away. So they had the car, Eric. But who would the driver be? Well, it would happen to be star witness for the prosecution, Eric's wife, Kim. They had been married for 15 years. She had been brought in shortly after Eric's arrest, and after a brief assistants told the investigators she not only knew about the murders, she helped him as getaway driver and lookout
from the greenside sand.
She also told the court how Eric threw a black bag with the murder weapons off a bridge one night.
Out of the sand.
She was brought into court during the penalty phase to ensure Eric got the maximum sentence. She also told how Eric had another person on his list, a judge he was going to kill with a crossbow. Eric Williams was sentenced to death by lethal injection.
All right, we're out of that sand. That's anything. Okay, let's see what happens. This is his third.
Due to this, prosecutors declined to try him with the Mike McClelland or Mark Hasse murders. Kim Williams was sentenced to 40 years in prison.
And here's his second shot.
And that's the story of that one. A twisted tale of revenge. You know, Eric Williams, with all of the weapons he had, napalm for God's sake, he was planning on going to war with Kaufman.
I guess we'll
all
see.
for that stealing 3 monitors. You know, getting prosecuted and losing everything for that, maybe a bit overblown, but I guess his idea of revenge maybe was also a bit overblown. He was going to burn the whole place down, you know, and had another murder. If he hadn't been caught, how many other...
No good. 6-foot putt for him. That was a good putt. Let's see what he does here. He's putting for par. And that one will drop. He's got 4 feet to the cup from here. And that par putt will drop. And off to a bit of a slow start after that first hole. We're over par, but don't worry. Have faith. Going with the 5-iron here. All right, let's see how he does on this hole. This approach is heading left. He's ready to tee off. Let's see what he has. And here's a look at their 5-iron. And let's see what happens. This is his second. Okay, he's setting up a second shot here. Well, well, let's see how he gets out of this one, shall we? And let's see how he gets out of this one. Okay, he's in the green side rough here. Setting up his third shot here. Take things down to even par with this putt.
Dude, get it.
Oh, man.
Oh, bitch.
Okay, here's our third shot. This one's for birdie. Oh, no, it's right there. He's got 15 feet to the cup. Ooh. This one's for triple bogey. Give him some positive thoughts. And that one will drop. Here's his 6-foot putt. Oh! And setting up here for the bogey. Ah, just right by the hole.
God damn it.
5 feet to go. That'll do. And as he lines this up, this will be for bogey. And finishing this one with a good putt. Okay, he's got 2 feet to go here. And you're 3 over at the moment. Well, it might be a tall ask for most, but I'm thinking you might be able to make a run at the leader. You are only 2 strokes off on this final hole. Those shots are going to happen to you. And he's ready to let her rip. Let's see how this hole goes. All right, this is his second. Let's get out of this. This is a little spinachy for my liking. Nicely done, back in the fairway. I like it. Let's just drop one next to the pin next shot. Okay, second shot for him on this one. Okay, he's in the bunker. Ways to go before he hits that green, I think.
Katherine Heigl made headlines when she was cast as the lead in a new CBS comedy, Our House. According to Variety, this is the first time the actress has been cast in a television comedy. But more than 10 years ago, Heigl actually made many, many more headlines because of her comments about her role in a big screen comedy. Comments that, at the time, seemed like they had ruined her career overnight. She was riding high back in 2007. The former Grey's Anatomy star not only won an Emmy Award for Best Supporting Actress in a Drama Series that year, she also began transitioning over to the big screen with her successful starring turn in Judd Apatow's Knocked Up, opposite Seth Rogen. Unfortunately, this movie star in the making's rise to the top quickly unraveled following an infamously ill-fated interview with Vanity Fair the following January. In a move that still has us scratching our heads, Heigl openly trashed her own work in the coveted cover story, saying, "It was a little sexist. It paints the women as shrews, as humorless and uptight, and it paints the men as lovable, goofy, fun-loving guys. It exaggerated the characters, and I had a hard time with it on some days. I'm playing such a... Why is she being such a killjoy? Why is this how you're portraying women?" 98% of the time, it was an amazing experience, but it was hard for me to love the movie. Given the beloved flick's undeniable success with audiences and critics, Heigl's candid comments sparked immediate backlash. For their part, Apatow and Rogen...
All right, here we go. This is his fourth shot. And this is a long distance putt. Let's see what he does. Ouch, right by the hole. This one's for par. Yikes, that went right by. He's got a 9-footer here. Ooh. And he's making an attempt here at the double bogey. Oh. He's got about 8 feet to the cup. Oh. Okay, bogey putt coming up. Looking good. And finishing your round with a bogey today. And a 5-foot putt for him. Oh. And hopefully this one drops. He's dubbing up here on the bogeys. And yep, he's gonna sign off this round with a double bogey. And that will do it for them. All right, he's lining up for the triple bogey here. Hold your breath. And that's going to do it for them here today. Okay, 4 over at the end of the day for you. And that's going to do it for me. My job's done. Hopefully, we'll see you again around here real soon, though.
Share your screen with others' audiences. Well, that's a show message. I will never be late for my own stream, but you're late. People are like telling me about it. I'm like, I've seen the ads. I'm like, you know what else makes a really great stocking stuffer? I have dreams about me. Sorry about that. I just had that effect. And owning a Cobra is fucking expensive. If you want like a monocle Cobra in Wyoming, these complimentary machines are pretty fucking. Also, cigarette smokers, do you think anyone's gonna send them a... God damn it. When you're carving them, they snap off at a certain... This is the #1 reason why bare basics. And then if you can make it to where like you could like add custom graphics to it. Sell t-shirts. With the content around. Always be honest. So once you've mixed your wine with the yeast and everything, you want to leave plenty of room for it to breathe and burp, otherwise you're going to get foam in your thing, like right here as an example. I'm still new to making wine. It's not the prettiest, but it gets the job done. $10 holla, yo man, don't drink that, just bombs. Well, I appreciate your concern, but I'm gonna drink it regardless of what you say, because that's the fun of making your own homemade wine, is making it and sampling the labor of your life. And honestly, making my own homemade wine has helped me cut down on my drinking, because you know, you make this amazing homemade apple cinnamon, and then you want to like throw some like cinnamon in there, you know. I forgot to mention that, but fucking the apple cinnamon sugar caramel honey mead, that one that I made was the best one so far in my opinion. They made like an apple cider and a mead at the same time, and really fucking good, like just straight up apple silk, dude. Apple's milk, fucking delicious. And I'm like, if I get great results and I like the way it tastes, believe me, I'm a high-functioning alcoholic. And if it gets my rocks off, then I know I did something right. Can we have a tasting with that mead in a chalice? I've already tasted my meads. I try my meads when I make them. Right now I don't have that much left because I fucking spilled most of it earlier on stream. And I was like, you know what? It is what it is. Puff took off and buried himself underground. He may not come out until fucking springtime when the snow thaws. And I'm just gonna have to keep my hopes up and keep looking for him. That's all you can do. You know. Worst comes to worst, you know, you can't really replace him specifically because he's one of a kind. But if you look out from like a pet perspective, I'm not trying to sound like a morbid fucking asshole about it, because it doesn't matter what the fuck I say, people are gonna twist it, you know. But if I find Puff dead outside because of this fucking shitty weather, I'm not gonna want to replace him, you know. It's gonna take me a year to fucking mourn his loss. I deeply care about that lizard. It wasn't about how many views got me on YouTube.